prepared some slides, some pictures, and I have to steer it on. Sorry, I wasn't supposed to. Nobody told me I have to prepare that in English, so yeah, but I try. So everybody does. So let's do it in a civilized way. Well, my name is Bartosz Wielin. I'm a journalist from Polish daily Gazeta Wyborcza. I'm not a specialist of Ukraine. I'm former correspondent from Germany. I'm covering German politics, but the time is hard, and in my redaction, everybody was asked to help our colleagues on the ground in Simferopol or in Kiev. So I'm also involved in publishing about Ukraine. And yesterday, Angela Merkel was in Warsaw, so there was plenty moving on. I was asked to present you some possible scenarios in the ways how this problem could evolve on Crimea. And let me brief you quite shortly what happened during the night. So, in Crimea, there seems to be no signs of further escalation. The Russians seized only one military base, very small. It was some kind of technical outpost of Ukrainian army, and nothing more. They also started a cyber war against Ukraine. They infected Ukrainian system with some kind of very malicious computer virus. The infection should have taken place years ago, and now the virus was activated by some signal from Russia. They also amassed quite a number of troops on the eastern border of Ukraine. It's about 80,000 soldiers. So it's much, and it doesn't look good. I will move to it further on. And on the diplomatic front, we have a very important development. Angela Merkel yesterday said that new sanction will be imposed against Russia, probably on Monday. And a few minutes ago in Bundestag, in German Parliament, she repeated that sovereignty of Ukraine is not a matter we could discuss with Russia. So Germany would defend Ukraine at least. So the problem is how severe the sanction will be. They have to prepare a list of persons involved in all these scandalous incidents in Ukraine. The persons who will lose money deposited in banks in Europe, who will get no visa to European Union. And the problem is who's going to be on that list. Will they ban Vladimir Putin and his collaborators entering European Union, or if they would just pick some persons from Crimea, those guys making troubles there, and they're gonna land on the list? That's an open question. So we have to suppose that negotiation in Brussels on Monday, on next Thursday before the EU summit, will be quite hard. So let's move to possible scenarios. The first one is a quite soft one and quite optimistic one: the autonomy. Let's imagine that Russia, under the pressure, diplomatic pressure from EU and from United States, would abandon the coast, would refrain from taking any hostile actions against Ukraine, and Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe would start serious negotiations between so-called Crimean separatists, so Crimea Russians, and the government in Kyiv. And they could settle a good compromise, and the autonomy of Crimean Peninsula, which lasts since 1991, would be somehow expanded, and rights of minorities in Ukraine could be guaranteed, could be also expanded. So the peace will be saved. The probably outcome of it is that Crimea could end like Russian Chechnya, which is part of Russia, formally part of Russia, but it's being governed quite sovereignly by Mr. Kadyrov, a butcher and a very bad guy, but he's doing whatever he wants in Chechnya. And the only condition is that he has to be loyal to Kremlin. And the Crimea could also be like Chechnya, manage many things independently, but be a part of Ukraine. This is a very optimistic scenario, and I don't think it's going to happen like that. I think the probability of this scenario is very low. The another one, independence. On Saturday, there's going to be a referendum, a voting on Crimea, and we are pretty sure that majority of so-called Crimean people would vote for independence. That voting is not going to be fair. It's not going to be a democratic one. You can't organize a referendum with the military threats, with the soldiers patrolling streets. That's not gonna be recognized by anyone in Western Europe. But the consequences will be severe. The Crimea would become another semi-independent state or strange state, like Transnistria, like Ossetia, like Abkhazia. Only Russia, maybe Nicaragua, maybe some small states in Pacific, part by Russia would recognize it. Belarus, I don't know if they're gonna recognize Crimea. This is also possible, but it's hard to say now. Sergei Aksyonov, also known as Goblin, will visit Kremlin. Is going to be, would be received there as a statesman, as a leader of Crimean nation, and Ukrainian military installation going to be stormed by so-called self-defense troop in Crimea. I mean, those Russian soldiers which are patrolling streets and making some troubles there without state insignias. For Crimea and also for Russia, this scenario would start international isolation. For Crimea, the situation is going to be much harder because all the supplies of energy and oil and gas and also food are delivered from Ukraine. If they cut off from the Ukraine, I believe the Kyiv would stop any support of Crimea. That could start, maybe famine, maybe other social problems there. And this is sure that in this scenario, the very serious consequences, diplomatic consequences, there will be some serious diplomatic consequences for Russia. So EU and USA, they won't tolerate separation of Crimea, and it's going to be sure that Putin and his friends will suffer for that. But I think this scenario is very possible, and that's what's going to happen in next week. But this is not the worst case. Another problem is Anschluss of Crimea. So Russian parliament, Государственная Дума, would accept the plea of Crimean people to join Russian Federation. So Crimea would become another oblast, so another part of Russian Federation. This guy, Aksyonov, would become the governor of Crimea. The Russian army would stop hiding itself in Crimea. They would just wear classic standard army uniforms. And so Crimea would be a part of Russian Federation. And there's going to be next escalating step. And, these consequences for Russia and also for Europe will be more severe and more dramatical. Because there's going to be a severe violation of international law. Well, you can accept under certain circumstances separation, creating an independent state, but Anschluss of another state, annexation, that's something you can't tolerate, you can't live with that. But this is not the worst case. I think it's probable, but it's not the worst case. The worst case is the war. The picture is a picture of Syria, of Aleppo probably. But it's quite possible that some cities in eastern Ukraine would look like that in a few weeks. As I said earlier, the Russian has amassed a great number of troops on the eastern border of Ukraine. Also, on the southern western border of Ukraine, they have also prepared troops in Transnistria. And according to some informations from that region, they prepared to launch coordinated offensive against Ukraine. So they will strike from western Russia against Kharkiv, against Donbass. They could start from Transnistria, strike from Transnistria against Odessa, and they could also strike from Crimea against other cities in southern Ukraine. So Ukraine would be torn apart. Russians would secure those Russian areas in Ukraine when the Russian people are dominating. I mean, the eastern and southern part, and the western Ukraine would be left like a very small state cut off of its industrial regions, of ports, of access to the Black Sea. It's hard to say how the fighting would look like. I suppose that Ukrainian army, which is said to be weak and under-equipped, would resist Russian soldiers, and they won't let them march freely and invade freely the country. So we have to expect very severe fighting with many casualties, also civilian casualties, with ethnic cleansing, just like we observed in Yugoslavia in 1990s. I don't say this is a very probable scenario, but this is also a probable and plausible one, and this scenario I'm most afraid of. And well, if one forgets about history, the history repeats. There's a slogan written in a museum in Auschwitz, but this is also the time to repeat this dreadful phrase. Thank you.